pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any public hearings, but we're going to presentations. 80 Gray Park Coalition presentation. Saran?
Turn this out in case you can't hear me. I did have a procedural question. The last time I came here, I handed out a letter from the Trust for Public Land. And I wonder, does that become part of the record or not? Because I was under citizens' comments.
Yeah, that becomes.
So I just want to be sure. I brought another copy.
Why don't you just add it to this?
Yeah, to be sure.
Just to be, so it's in.
Yeah, just to be sure it's in the record.
I already have a copy, but
Yeah.
I'll take another one.
Okay,
Yeah, just
thank you. And I have copies of the plan too, which I know you've had before, but maybe. I can't lift my finger. This is just the last of the 4 pages. So you can have that too. What was that?
80.
Katie, did you say you can't see?
What?
I thought you said you can't see.
I'm on the telephone.
I know. That's why I thought it was funny.
I'm trying to get on. I was trying to get on Zoom, but I couldn't get anybody to help me with it.
Max is right here.
Well, he gave me the link, and I pressed the link, and then I pressed the button that I was supposed to press, and nothing came up.
Okay.
So I'll do the phone for tonight.
Okay.
So, good evening. My name is Saran Pine, and I am here tonight on behalf of the AD Gray Park Group. Our group is here tonight to urge you to table or delay all negotiations with Volunteers of America, and for you to decide to give the citizens an opportunity to vote on whether they want an in-town park. We realize this was not the plan that you initially presented to the town and surveyed the citizens in a non-binding vote last November. Volunteers of America is proposing to purchase the property of the former AD Gray School for $1 and turn it into a regional subsidized housing project. So we are offering a different path. We're offering a vision of what it means to have a lovely in-town park, one that could be used for organized sports, for baseball, pickleball, tennis, for a children's playground, and a park for large community gatherings, for farmers markets. This park is not a Band-Aid. This park is transformative. But let's look at and let's discuss some of the issues which may be of concern to you. First of all, senior housing. And as I've noted before, senior housing has a place in every community, but it should come for our citizens first. Volunteers of America has clearly stated they have not looked at the specific needs of Waldeboro. Rather, they looked at an area including northern Cumberland, Sagadahoc, Lincoln, Knox, and Waldo counties. And even the folks at Volunteers of America have admitted that they have doubts that whether 32 units are needed in the area. Unlike Volunteers of America, Our group is made up of residents of Waldeboro, people who live and work in this town, people who want to have an open green space for generations to come. You might ask, why can't we have both? Some of you may be saying, why can't we have a subsidized housing project and a park at the same time? The park proposal envisions about 3.33 acres plus the ball fields of 4.05 acres, plus the area with the existing tennis courts. If the building lot were held out for Volunteers of America, the combined parking requirements for both would diminish viability. Simply put, there's not enough parking spaces. And combining a park and subsidized housing would create an unusual and contradictory use. Some of you have suggested, why don't we turn the building into a community center? And, but again, the parking requirements would be an issue. The park and the ball field would also not be feasible. And then let's think about a community center, and I have actually questions for the select board. Land and water conservation funds, that is the money that we are suggesting the town apply for this park. But would that interfere with the town's plans for a community center? To my knowledge, there is not a conflict. I've been informed by the person who manages the Land and Water Conservation Fund program for the state that those funds can only be used for new construction, for example, a community center, if the building houses either an indoor swimming pool or an ice rink. Is that in the plans? I haven't even seen the plans for the community center, but I wondered. So I don't think there's a conflict with land and water conservation funds. I would like to know if I'm wrong or if you have other plans. Policing. Going forward, will we need more policing for that area? Well, right now, there's a vacant building on the property. Some people would call that a nuisance, an invitation for vandalism. And yet, that was essentially the choice the people were given last November. A.D. Gray Park will be no different from any other park in town. Some policing will be required, but we already have some policing there. How many times have the police gone to monitor Quarry Hill on Depot Street? How many times have the police gone to monitor the River Park? And perhaps compare that with how many times the police are called to monitor housing projects. And then there is, one of you brought up the question of River Park. We already have River Park, which is a lovely small piece of land on the Madomic River, but it's only 1.7 acres. It's not large enough for 2 pickleball courts, and it's certainly not really compatible for a children's playground or for large community gatherings. The A.D. Gray lot with the adjacent parcels meets those requirements for organized sports, a children's playground, and other community uses. Now, the timeline is extremely important. This project will need to be approved by the voters in June of this year at town meeting. But before then, you all need to give your approval for an application to the state for the Land and Water Conservation Funds for this project. Will you do that? If approved by the town, the project will then need to be approved by the fund through the state's Bureau of Parks and Lands, which would be sometime in July or August. And then the project would be sent to the National Park Service for final approval, and actual disbursements would most likely not occur until March of next year. The budget. The amenities for the park need to be decided upon by the Recreation Committee and by you, the select board, and by the voters. The amenities do not need to happen immediately, but some of it is definitely possible. We have a project budget of $300,000 to raise the building, remove the 2 obsolete tennis courts, which, as you know, are located in part in a state and town designated wetland and wetland buffer. In addition, the construction debris will be disposed of. Fill will be brought in to cover the basement excavation, and loam and seed all disturbed areas. The wetland and its buffer will be restored. To date, in just the past 2 weeks, our group has received pledges which will meet more than half of the budget. Given the momentum, given the favorable reception, we believe we can receive even more pledges. And we want to remind you that our group has the support of the Trust for Public Land. That national nonprofit knows the communities that place a high value on outdoor access for all citizens are healthier, more resilient, and more equitable. This park will be an asset for our town. So going forward, we ask you to envision an in-town park for outdoor recreation and community gatherings for all of our citizens. And to quote Leon Gorman, the late president of LL Bean, preserving the open space in perpetuity is for the benefit of the whole town, because that is where the real value lies. That lies for the unborn children of tomorrow. And so we urge you to table discussions with Volunteers of America, move forward with the application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and present that to the voters in June. Let the voters decide. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Does the select board have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. Saran, why is this coming up now? Why didn't this come up 6 years ago, or 10 years ago, or a year ago?
Well, you know, I've thought about that a lot. I've been working. I haven't been focused on town politics or what was going on in the town at all. So that's all I can tell you why I haven't done it. Why hasn't someone else done it? I don't know. But I will say this, does it really matter? What difference does it make?
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it matters when we've been in the process of good faith discussions with a qualified, known national organization that's in the business of constructing or rehabbing buildings that provide affordable senior housing. That's what this project is. It's important to know that. It's unlike any other project we've done in Waldenberg, as far as I'm aware. Senior housing, that's what we want, affordable senior housing. And we have a perfectly good building that, in my view, would be a shame to tear down. So I'm reluctant to move away from that process. We've started and are very much in the middle of it. We have a draft memorandum of understanding on the table.
Yeah.
It's important to do that. I'm not sure that the two processes are mutually exclusive.
I'm sure they are mutually exclusive, but let me respond to you, Bob. First of all, how did Volunteers of America come to Waldeboro? Were you actively looking for senior housing for that building? No, in fact, I believe Julie got a cold call from them. I don't think you were looking. So how did that happen?
Well,
Because I believe because it was in the newspaper
You weren't
about
really
the
looking for
Tim
it.
Wells
I'm not
application.
sure how the questions are related. Serendipity, is part of
Exactly. So what difference does it make? It's,
Well, it makes a big difference when you've been sitting down with someone for 6 months and are on track to do something, and all of a sudden say, no, we're not going to do it because there's a group in town
well,
that wants
that's the
something
way
on.
life is, and that
Well, it may or
happens.
may not.
This is not the first time it would have happened to them, I know. And so that's the way life is. That's just the way it is.
Well,
So, I mean, to me, I don't see that as a reason to ignore the issues of the park at all. I don't, and I certainly look at last November and what was given to the voters to vote on last November was a choice between Volunteers of America and keeping the building vacant for another 10 years. Is that what kind of choice is that? It's not your fault. I mean, in the sense that that's what was presented. We're just saying, here's something that is also viable, very viable. We've raised a lot of money so far. So look at this and let the voters decide on this. Don't let them go on your moral obligation, which I understand you have. I can understand that you feel that way. You sat down with these people for 6 months. Of course you feel that way. But we have something that's also very real.
May I?
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay. You're proposing that the town will own the park?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So when the park is built and completed, the town will be responsible for maintaining it?
Yes.
Do you have any idea what that's going to cost?
Well, I'm not totally sure, no, because the Recreation Committee needs to decide, and you all do too, need to decide what amenities do you want for this property.
And in regard to tearing down the school, you quoted $300,000.
Yes,
And I believe that includes what, getting rid of the demolition debris?
that's right.
So, and where did you get this number from?
I got that from someone who was willing to do the work. I don't
So
have a
you
signed contract.
You have a proposal for
I
that?
do.
Could you provide it to the board to see it in writing? We'd
Um,
like to know what the scope
I
of
think I
work
can.
is.
It's actually less than that, but yeah,
Okay.
I think I can.
And you're talking about equipping the park. I'm
Yes.
seeing on the drawing that there's looks like a skating rink.
Well, those were just ideas. I mean, the skating rink, for example, Marcus told me that there's already a skating rink in town. Of course, it's not fully finished because it doesn't, I believe you said it doesn't have a liner.
Yeah,
But
the
it-
liner was trashed, it was broken, so we've been, we were planning on getting a new liner, we had a group in town that was very
Yeah,
excited about a new ice rink.
right.
And we had cleared the spot, but with COVID and the budget being cut, we didn't order a new liner, so it's on the docket for the future, or wherever it may be, we've cleared a spot, but
So in other words, this is a draft concept plan is what this is. So really, someone like Troy is the person you should be asking, what do you think the town should be had? And Marcus, you should ask the two of them, what should we have in that
I'm
space?
sure we'll get to them.
Well, there are meetings tomorrow night. I'm not sure. They haven't met yet, so their meetings tomorrow night.
All right. And who would actually build the park? Do you have a contractor in mind?
I can say that I don't have one person in mind, one contractor in mind.
You have a number of them?
I haven't gotten that far, only because I don't have an okay from the select board. And I also don't have anything definitive from the Recreation Committee in terms of what they think they would like for this outdoor park. Yeah.
Okay, so,
And so for the same reason, I can't tell you what I think the annual budget should be for maintaining. But if you look at the tennis courts, you must have a budget for those 2 tennis courts for maintenance right now. I don't think you meet it, but
need money to put in outwards for something.
I don't think there is.
No.
so you don't budget for it even though you don't, aside from the fact that you don't have the money, you don't have a budget for that.
No,
We have a parks and,
the recreation budget has been,
right,
it's just for programming, we have,
correct.
and our,
It's not for maintenance.
we have our field maintenance that we put in for the other fields, but there's been nothing. I use it on the ball field, but I've never done anything with the tennis courts, they were well past their use by the time I was hired.
Yeah, they're obsolete, yep.
and to go back to one of the central points of your presentation, personally, I don't see any point in disbanding our discussions with DOA when I think that the senior housing and the park are complementary, not in opposition to one another. I think you can have both. And I've talked to a number of people around town who feel exactly the same way. They think that, in fact, is a good solution to the issue that's being raised, having a recreation park next to the old school building where everybody has access, including the seniors who live there, and the senior housing, for which there is a need in this area.
Tell me about the need for senior housing. I'd really like to know more about it.
Well, I'm not the expert. I'm gonna leave that to BOE because part of their, what they're bringing to the table is a market study to determine what the needs actually are. They plan to build 32 units.
But they admitted, and I mean,
I'm
I
not
was,
sure it's an admission.
I was there at one of the meetings where they said that they had their doubts. They would fill those 32 units.
Then why would they build them?
Exactly.
Future. I think they've done enough of these projects to know what demand is and how to accommodate that demand. And I would put a lot more credibility onto an organization that's been around that block numbers of times, as opposed to a group that, to my knowledge, doesn't really have support in this town. I've gotten emails from 10 or 11 people. I've had a few phone calls, 2 of them against what you're doing, and the remainder programmed because they're calling because they've been encouraged to do so. But there hasn't been a groundswell for this idea. Maybe it would be good if you made this public on some internet somewhere or a website somewhere, so people could see what it is you're planning. But I haven't seen a groundswell of support. I have one person who was called and you spent an hour talking to this person. And after that hour, they weren't convinced that this is something the town should be looking at. They were more in favor of the senior housing project because they know where they are in their life and can see a need for it, potential need for it. So, and again, I go back to the idea that they're complementary. They're not in opposition to one another.
I don't agree with you on that. And I say put it to the voters. Let the voters decide.
I have a question.
Oops. Who is that?
I don't know how this works. This is Chris Jones. Can I speak? Ask a
That's up to the select board.
We're right in the middle of select board comments.
I'm going to let the select board speak first, and then we'll move on to other comments. Oh, she heard me.
I don't know.
Yeah, did you hear
Okay.
that, Chris?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Bob, you all?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Jan?
well, I just had a couple questions. One, just to state, there is a need for affordable housing in the entire mid-coast area. That came through the planning department through when we were working on our comprehensive plan. There's a need. But I was just curious, Waldenberg does have a lot of green space. What other areas have you looked at?
Oh, in Waldeboro? Mm-hmm. We're talking in town. What other areas are there in town? We don't have a town commons here. So what other areas?
Where have you looked? Have you gone to the Conservation Commission and looked to see where the green space is?
Where is there that in town?
That's why I'm asking if you have researched
No, but
that.
I'm asking you, where in town is there 8 acres available?
It doesn't need to be 8 acres, in my opinion. There is land down on Pine Street. There's some land down there.
I believe there's 20 some odd. How many acres are up on top of the hill behind the water tower that the town owns? 20 some odd acres?
It's probably a lot more than 20 acres.
Yeah, it goes all the way back to.
And that's in town. It's right across from the Friendship Street School. I mean, it's not, that's that far away. It's 20 some odd acres that the town owns, and we're actually looking at possibly getting rid of it. So, I mean.
Maybe the VOA can take that one too.
Yeah, maybe the VOI could take that too. Yeah.
But, go ahead. But,
So I have a couple of,
I did have another one.
Go ahead, Jen.
I'm curious about the condition of the ball field right now. You're doing a revamp of this whole area, I'm expecting. And actually, I didn't really understand that you wanted that this was going to be a total town project early on.
How so? How do you mean by that?
Because, well,
I mean, we're not asking the town for any money at this point.
no, it sounded to me like you had a group and you were going to do the funding and get the money and do it.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So I assumed that was, it was going to be the project of your group. But, so this will be the town. That's good to know. I wasn't clear on that at the beginning. You mentioned tonight that it was. I thought you would have looked for, if you're looking for a park, to check out all the area in town, the land in town that was available, as well as do an assessment of what parks we already have in town.
Now, that's a great point, Jan.
And what needs that those offer, and what,
Yeah,
what we can do to either improve those.
I did ask
Add
about
to
that.
those.
Yeah,
Early on, nobody seemed to know about some
I
of
did
those.
ask about that. I asked Marcus
Yep,
at the rec committee meeting. I
Right,
said,
this
could
was,
you
I think-
tell me what parks we have in town?
yeah.
And you told me the park across from Hanford's, and you said you couldn't come up with anything else. And I said, what about over at Dutch Neck? Is that considered a town park?
It's Marine
And you
Park.
Marine
said,
Park.
It's a
Marine
marine
Park.
park, so it's not quite the same. And I said, how about the town landing? Is that considered a park? Weren't sure about that either. So I did ask.
Okay,
And I did, so
At
can you
our
tell me
first
what other
meeting-
parks we have?
at our first meeting, nobody seemed to be aware of any other parks in town. This was prior to you going to the recreation department. So that I would have thought, and then looking at other lands, and we do have other lands in town, or working in collaboration with one of the other, for example, the land trust.
Well, have you offered any other land to Volunteers of America?
We're looking at a building. They're looking at a building. You're looking at green
They
space.
don't need a building. They can build new. They have built new
We
in
have a
other
building.
places.
So so the condition of, and you plan to sort of rehab this whole place?
Yeah.
Okay, so are the ball fields, the softball field down there, what kind of shape is that in?
I would say a little bit below average. It gets used, it's a really good soccer field. We use it for our fifth, sixth
Right.
soccer field.
Yeah, I've been
We used
there.
it for K2 this year because we weren't allowed on the school fields.
Yeah.
As far as baseball's concerned, we only really use it for T-ball games and then like farm team and little league practices. But, the infield is not the best. The backstop is going to need to be replaced soon, and the fence around the entire property around the field is not in the best shape.
Okay, and do we have a budget?
The grass and the drainage are good.
Yeah. So do we have a budget for that? Do you know what that's gonna cost to upgrade that?
No, I haven't. I haven't looked into it a ton. I've been kind of waiting. Since I've got here, the whole property has been up in question since I was hired. So to put a major revamp into a property I wasn't sure we were still going to own in a few years didn't seem like a good idea. So I've maintained it with as little money as possible. Maintained it up to the standards it was at the best I could with what money I had. But I haven't put any plans together for a major overhaul. I've thought about it. Like you said, it's no sense to dump $200,000 into a field if you're going to sell it 5 years later. So we weren't sure.
Okay. I had another thought. Oh, the property, my concern, I do have a concern because it's on a dead-end road. And I know that it's the backyard to a project in town. And I know there's been some issues back there over the years, over many years. There's a path right from that property. The back, and what concerns me a little bit is because it's a dead end, that people don't drive by and see what's going on, whereas in, the picnic area, you can see what's going on. At the river park, you can see that from people's homes, some of it from driving. That concerns me a little bit because it's dead end and what might, after hours, what that might mean after hours and what that might mean for the town as far as policing.
Isn't it already there? You already have policing there, don't you? You already have a baseball field. We already have a
Right.
baseball field there. So how is that different? And there's already, as I said, a vacant building there. And if the building is elderly housing, how is that going to improve? Is that going to be policed more?
Because it would be a park, because it would be open park, it would be encouraging people to come out. That's how it would be different. In my eyes, that's how it would be different.
I don't see it as different from any other park in town.
I've had calls about that, so I'm just passing that on, asking the question.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Colonel, you got anything?
Just, first, is there a deadline with Volunteers of America or a timeline that's set up? If there's been one put out, I'm not aware of it, or I forgot it. You know, is there a drop dead date or anything like that?
Well, let Julie address that.
I would say it's May.
Yeah, that, if they want to get it done.
May.
It's time to move on.
All right. Now it says the pledges have been received to cover about half, or somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000. Okay. And that's not anything for anything that's going on within the park facilities,
Not yet, because we don't know
what it's going to look like.
what the rec committee and the select board would want.
Okay.
But given the fact that we've raised that much money in about 2 weeks, we do have momentum. Maybe people aren't contacting you, but they are. Yeah.
Okay.
And we certainly haven't, there's a lot of people we haven't asked yet, Bob.
And these are,
Go ahead.
these are residents of Waldenberg who put up the money?
I'm not at liberty to say who specifically, but I can tell you that there are residents and non-residents too. Yeah, both.
So presumably, these are commitments, they're not actual money in hand.
That's correct, because of the select board. So action needs to occur. Right.
Okay, Colonel, you got more?
Oh, that's all I have.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Katie, do you have anything?
I'm all set, thanks.
Okay.
Can I just ask a couple questions?
Go ahead.
Just because, so you've got 150,000 in pledges. What is the amount you want to ask for the grant?
Well, I'm not really sure. Again,
You're
I'm
not
not
sure.
sure because
Okay.
I was going on $300,000.
So it's going to technically be a town of Waldeboro project.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
and it has-
so the
in fact,
pledges and the
it has to
trust,
be.
so we'd have to set up a trust to receive the pledges.
Not necessarily, no, you don't. The pledges can be held by a 501c3. And as the money gets spent, at least this is how I understand it from talking with Doug Beckett in Augusta, the pledges could be held, for example, by a nonprofit in the area. And as the money gets spent, the town gets reimbursed. And the
So
town
we
gets
have to put
reimbursed.
out money first.
I'm not sure how that works, the lag time, if that's what you're worried
Yeah,
about.
that's what I'm concerned about, lag time. I'm concerned,
You're not
and
going to go broke, yeah.
it's, well, I like to think we're not. Part of where I guess I have a question is, if we contract for the work, it has to then be bid.
That's a good question.
I think.
No, that's a good question.
No, I actually think it does. I
Well,
mean,
no, I don't know that you have to contract for the work. I'm not sure about that.
so,
Because I do know personally of other projects in which towns have joined a partnership, for example, with the local land trust. And the local land trust has essentially been the bank, if you want to think of it that way.
right. So this is an existing 501(c)(3).
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I will look into that further for you.
Yeah, and I'll look into it too, because like these are the nuts and bolts. I wish we'd had this conversation prior, because then I would not have to do this. But one of my other questions that I have, so we've been, part of the 80 grade committee, it's been very clear that they want certain protections for if somebody walks away from the project. And this is a question I've been getting right. So say this gets started and somebody walks away. Would the committee be willing to put up a performance bond that if it falls all apart, that a $500,000 performance bond could be put up by the organization to say, if we don't complete this, there's some, because if a bird in hand is worth two in the bush, is a thing my grandmother used to say.
Sure.
And so one of the requirements we have with VOA, and I asked the VOA if I could share this, is one of the proposals on the table is they have to put up a performance bond that if they do not perform and they walk away, that the town, our proposal to them is a $500,000 performance bond. Is that something that you would be comfortable with putting up?
I'll certainly look into that.
Can you
I
look
think that's
into
a
that?
good idea. I think the difference is that with the Parks project, this town will end up with a clean slate, if you will, as opposed to a half-built building.
Again, if the pledges come through and we get the grant, and I've written many a grant, and I'm pretty good at it, and sometimes I'm amazed I don't get them. So, and I've talked to the same person you've talked to, and it's not always a slam dunk, as we've learned.
Right.
So my other question would be, I'll reserve that just because it might get answered as we go. I want to hear what everybody else has to say. But thank you, and I'll definitely.
Yeah, no, we'll talk again.
All right, does anybody else in the audience got anything to ask? I believe Chris had a question.
Is she still
I don't
there?
see her right there.
Oh, she's there, she's there.
Yeah, Chris, you're muted.
She has to unmute.
Yeah, Chris, you'll just have to unmute yourself.
I just came back. So I have two questions. What harm would it do to give the information to the public with more information, via something online, newspaper? What harm would it be to get some input from more people? Obviously, a lot of people don't have all the information. And what's in it for the entire town of Waldeboro to have, well, I know it would be a quick fix to get rid of this building that you've been trying to get rid of for years, but what's in it for the town as a whole to have that senior housing? What benefit would it be for the town as a whole versus even if it was a fallow green space? And I understand, I keep hearing, oh, we have this little park, we have that little park, but they're not in town and they're not always easily accessible to everybody. I mean, so the two questions are, what's the problem with not letting it go to the voters? And how does another senior housing or another subsidized housing benefit all of Waldeboro, aside from getting rid of this building that's been, well, since we've lived here, 9 years, we've been trying to get rid of. Those are my two questions.
Julie, is VOA comfortable with our talking about the revenue side of the MOU?
Yeah, I think they're reasonably comfortable about it. Again, their one caveat is we are in negotiation.
Right, so nothing's in stone. May I respond to that question? At least
Yes,
what's
sure.
in it for the town.
Go ahead.
In addition to creating a community of elderly folks up on the hill there, and potential customers for businesses in town, and members of the library, and people who go to the theater, there is on the table a discussion of, depending on how they structure the deal, it could be real estate taxes and/or payments in lieu of taxes, which is far better than we are now, because we have nothing out of the property. There's nothing being paid at all to the town. It's a drain on our treasury. So I think I've responded to that side of the question. As for whether we should take it to the voters or not, as I said, my personal view is I'm not comfortable doing that given where we are in our discussions with VOA.
Saran, I have a question. With your idea of taking it to the voters, one of the questions that I've been asked is if it does go to the voters. So there'll be a question for, do you support this? The other person, and one of your things was it was binary. about, you would also then, and this was a question I was asked today, so I think select board maybe would have to determine this. Would then the question of the VOA go back on? So it would be a two-part question.
I see it that way. I absolutely.
So you see it as, so list your, like,
Proposals.
the proposal and then the VOA proposal.
And just so you know, the Land and Water Conservation Funds requires a town warrant. It requires a question on the ballot. It requires the town to vote for that. I don't know about Volunteers of America. I have a feeling that you're actually under the, taking the position, the select board, I think, has taken the position that you don't need to go back to the voters for this. Or do you intend to? Actually, there's my question. Do you intend to go back to the voters for this?
I would
Volunteers of America?
tend to go back. I think the non-binding vote back in November.
It was non-binding.
Okay, that's correct, but it speaks volumes to me. I think that kind of gave us the green light to go ahead and try to negotiate the best possible deal for the town with VOA in the absence of any other reasonable and viable and doable alternative.
Oh, well, we've got it right here.
Well, I question that. I'm not convinced.
So you're envisioning, should we support the town park? And hopefully by then you would have true costs, things like that, and then you could also put the same, so then the next question would be, or however it's.
Yeah, I'm happy to help with that. But I agree, that is how I see it.
And so then the parameters of what agreement is the MOU would then appear on the ballot. I got you.
Yeah.
I got Mr. Vail.
Oh.
No, I got Mr. Vail, Mr. Vail had his hand
He
up.
didn't see you back there.
I saw her.
You gotta
I saw her,
wait.
but Mr. Vail was in front of
Take
her.
up too much space, that's all.
Speak loudly, Ben.
You think I can commit, you think I can fill a room, Troy?
I think you got it.
Okay,
Get the coach voice.
yeah. Well, anyway, my name is Ben Vail. I was the last principal of that building. I'm a butter of the property and a member of the 80 grade committee. And all I want to say, without getting it back and forth, is why I believe we should continue toward the VOA unless it becomes a point where it's unprofitable for the town. Given the fact that not only would the building cost, the building development would be VOAs, but if the negotiations go, there is going to be money probably coming back to the town in payment in lieu of taxes. It provides a home for people in need. This is the oldest state, the oldest county in the oldest state. I have a hard time believing there isn't a need for affordable senior housing. I think it's the best solution for turning what is now a center for vandalism into a productive property. And most importantly for me, it upholds the will of the people. Saran and I had this debate on the phone, so it's nothing new, which is, she said they didn't have any other options. I said, yes, they do. They had this or anything else, and they chose this. And it's 81% of the people. That's pretty powerful. And we had it during a national election where you had a huge turnout. And let me talk, and you stop talking,
Yes.
please.
Please, Jeff.
Yeah.
If the negotiations with VOA turn out to be not profitable for the town, I am all in on the park. But I think at this point, the best thing to do is continue until we find out where these negotiations go. Thank you.
You in the back?
I didn't hear Bob's answer about putting the vote on the ballot again. He said he doesn't want to put it on the vote.
No, he said he didn't feel comfortable, is what he said. His exact words.
Yeah, but if I may amend.
Go ahead, Bob.
Talking about how it would appear on the ballot, I'd like to see 3 questions if it goes on.
Mm-hmm.
1 is VOA, 2 is the park, and 3 is both. Because that's another viable option.
Not for the park, but that would be your doing.
That's all right.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna limit the questions just because we get time.
Well, it's like, Bob did say he doesn't want to put it for a vote again, but he did want to put the garbage issue on the vote again because that's his personal project. And that was like 4,000 people who didn't want to pay for garbage removal, and he does want to address that again on the vote. So, you know, you can't just pick and choose which you do want to vote on.
No, it's just a comment. I think it's just a comment. Jan, I'm gonna let Jan speak.
Okay, I just wanted to speak to Chris, I believe. She's gone.
Yeah, Chris left.
Oh, well, her question was how would the senior citizens benefit the town? And Bob gave some good examples. Another is senior citizens, and when I talk about senior citizens, these people are, you know, can be 20 years younger than I am. And what the senior citizens do in Waldeboro is they are members of the board of the library. They belong to the land trust, and they help run that.
The garden club.
The garden club. The volunteers in Waldeboro are basically people of that age. Not only and they do shop in town, and they do spend their money in town. And if they don't have a lot of money, they give their time to the town. And I think that that's commendable, and I think they offer the same thing to town as someone who moved into town and bought a house, lives in an apartment, anything else. They offer the same thing to town.
I think the only really, it takes a lot to get me worked up, and this is kind of get me worked up because it's kind of, I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed since I was 18. I just turned 50 last week. So
happy birthday.
To somebody to sit there and, I'm a lifelong resident. I've lived here all my life. Grew up here, went to every school in this town. And there's not many in this room that can say that. There's probably not even 2 or 3 people. I mean, Friendship Street School, I went to that. I bet you there's nobody in this room that can say that. To sit here and listen to this crap that we don't need senior housing, which it should be directly senior housing, is just drives me crazy because you're taking and sending people, old residents that we've seen on this, that's come to this board for money to pay their taxes. They don't want to leave their homes. They don't want to leave their property. They have no choice. They have to sell it because they can't afford it anymore. So they have to go somewhere. So instead of letting them live here, we send them to Damascotta, send them to Thomaston, send them to Rockland, send them to Brunswick. You know, so it really drives me crazy that you people that move in here from away think we don't need the people that live in Waldeboro. My mother lives on Social Security. She couldn't, if she didn't live in one of the houses I own, she couldn't live here because there's no place for her to go. She gets $800-900 a month. Fortunately, her late husband, was a retired military guy. She got half of his pension. So that's the only way she gets to actually live in Waldeboro is because she lives in one of my houses. To sit here and hear you people say this is very disturbing. And I know Troy, I've talked to Troy about this. His parents as well would like to move back to Waldeboro. So,
Yeah.
it's disturbing to hear people that come into this town and do this.
I guess I would just make it real quick, because we're gonna meet and talk about this tomorrow at the Recreation Committee. Anybody, I'm Troy Smith, I'm the chair, and I work with Marcus. And obviously, if you look at both of these, and when we talked about it briefly, and obviously we'll come back with our recommendation and thoughts, but I mean, the reality is if you try to take out the anger in the room, is that both projects are viable compared to what we have now, as far as they're both positives. But obviously, one came before another one, which is a fact. And we also have, you know, as people know, on that last, we have the initiative to try to build a community center. So it's a real tough choice, but they're all good, positive things to come of that property. But I mean, definitely to say both projects don't have merit. Can both projects coexist? We talked about that. We talked about, you know, what other uses for that. But you know, for us as a recreation committee, we're trying to move forward with a community center. And obviously, there's only so many competing funds and so much stuff that we can do, so we'll have that discussion, you know, and we talked about it with this group as well, as, you know, this outline may not be what we determined would be the best outline as well, because it didn't really come to us first. We're not necessarily vetting, but our input, so, and that's just the timing piece of it as well. So it's an interesting thing.
Jeff?
If there was a big need for housing, then the housing that our people can actually go to and stay in would be filled. But there's not. Just saying, there's not. I go on Craigslist right now. There's
That's your source is Craigslist?
No, I haven't finished talking, but thank you. No, but then the town did approve, if I'm not mistaken, above the laundromat, there's a 10-room housing going in there without parking, but past it, so there's 10 there, plus all the other housings that we have here.
I think you're getting confused with what you consider affordable housing and what's true affordable housing. And I think that's where.
What was the BOA say for the price range?
I think it's $42,000 is the income and under, I think. Don't quote me on that. It's been a long day.
I think it's 30 something.
30
Okay. Okay. Like I said, it's been a very long day. But I think that's, you know, I think that's where you think it's affordable. That's where they should be. I think this is specifically designed, and I think that's where the difference is.
Well, I wasn't actually finished talking. But,
Okay.
So
Sorry.
I just had someone approach me, and I went through the process just to learn about all this stuff. So I had HUD call me from Rockland, and they said, well, you have some buildings. Can we fill out an application so you can go through the process and learn? I said, absolutely, let me go through this. So it doesn't matter if anyone's building, anyone can stay at anyone's house here if they wanted. There's housing and there's subsidies for all this. So I sent out an application, and then HUD sent someone there, and the state of Maine came, and within 7 days, I could have somebody staying in one of my units if I elected to do so, for more than what I actually get, by the way, for a 1-bedroom. So anyone here who has any space in their house can get housing vouchers or low income in your home to help subsidize if you wish to do so. So when I say there's not a need, not because it's Craigslist, I'm just saying that's just something that's right, anyone can check it out like now. There's low-income housing that's available, that's not utilized, but the VOA does not give priority to our people, which these places do, which are available, is my point.
So should I add you to the list for the community navigator?
I don't know what that means.
So we have a community navigator now. So I guess if people are renting out through that, that's a choice. I don't necessarily think through the HUD,
whatever it is, yeah,
that program. It's a little bit different, I still think, than what we're talking about, but well, senior specific housing, there's subsidized housing.
I'm with you.
Okay,
But
that
the VOA themselves said it was not.
correct, and some people don't qualify for that. So you have to realize that with the senior housing that they're proposing, it's based on income. And then you have, I think you're talking about a Section 8 housing. I could be wrong.
No, it's
No.
a housing voucher for people who are displaced. It could be for Section 8 as well, but it's not in this particular case. Displaced people or anyone who just homeless, for instance. I have someone who wants to live tomorrow.
So we would love to have a list, and if you're going to put your properties on it, that would be great, because when our community navigator is helping folks, a list like that would be good. And recently, it took her 2 months to get somebody placed in one of our actual buildings here. So I'm confused when, are you talking about actual vacancies in buildings that are?
Could be your home.
It could be your home, okay, so there's a little bit of a difference there.
But it could also be.
It could also be families, it could also be,
You have to have
correct,
the state of income.
correct.
Obviously, make sure.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, because I've heard that a couple of times, and
Were you also saying that there were vacancies, are vacancies at
Coles Hill.
Coles Hill and the Sproul Block?
Correct.
I don't know if Coles Hill is accurate, because we've been trying to get one of our residents in there, and that has not come to fruition yet. So I know they do advertise, and sometimes they put you on a waiting list, so that could be the advertisement that's being seen.
Jan?
I have a small rental on Bremen Road, and the last time it was empty, I put it on Craigslist. I sat down and I put it on Craigslist, and before I closed my computer, the phone rang. Within 2 days, I had 40 people wanting to come look at that house. I had to close it off at that, and I interviewed 40 people, and they couldn't find places. And they came from as far as Waterville, mostly, though, in the mid-coast area. Not all of them were from Waldenberg, some were.
Sure.
But people who move here are our new residents. There were 40 people in 2 days. I couldn't believe it. So I think there is a need. These people felt that there was a need, and I could choose one family.
They were elderly though, or is it the same thing that she was just saying to me? Is that the same thing?
This is just a private rental.
Sure.
But it's a lot lower than a lot of other places.
I agree.
The rent is not low. It's hard to come by.
Max, somebody got a question?
Yeah, Ruben Marr asked 2 questions on YouTube. Both are for Saran. One is, you'd just like to know how many members are part of this 80 grade park group that you're talking about. And then secondly, this is probably a reference to the last meeting, is Senator Chloe Maxman still in support of this project?
So in terms of how many people are in our group, we have not taken a membership count, so I can't tell you that. And as far as Senator Maxman is concerned, she has asked us to not use her name for this project.
She wants to get more information.
That she wants to get more information. And so she, I believe, wanted to attend the meeting that was canceled last week. I think there was a meeting canceled last week.
Nope.
The subcommittee meeting.
Oh. That one wasn't. Was it?
So she wants to get more information.
Okay. All right. Is there any other comments? Any questions? Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Simmons. This is for you.
Yep.
Not everybody that wants a park. I don't know enough to claim that we don't need housing.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we probably do, but I just think that spot in particular would be a greater benefit for the town as a park.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't doubt that we need affordable housing. I want everybody to have a nice home, but I just think that location. So I don't want you to think that all of us are just.
Yep.
But that's
how it looks to me as a lifelong resident.
Yeah.
This is where I'm coming from. Even look that way. But I'm telling you that I want to park there because I think it's the best thing for the town. I grew up.
But that's not how you presented it.
Well,
And I
don't think there should be any living there at all.
And,
Right.
I
told Julie that.
And I apologize if that's how it looks. I don't blame you for feeling that way.
Yep.
But I just think growing up, I'm sorry, Julie, go ahead.
I just have to share that. That's what a lot of calls I get are, just so you're all aware. It's and it breaks my heart because when I came here because, and I'm not sure who was in my interview, but I think you were the only one. But I was interviewed by 23 people. It was the biggest interview I've ever done. And one of the things that made me choose here and not a town further up the road where I could be making a heck of a lot of money and probably home with my grandkids, was the fact that this was such a socioeconomically diverse. And I love the fact that I can have a digger walk into my office and I can have a retired CEO or whoever. And I pride myself on listening to everybody. Even Jeff and I can have great debate on the phone, and he'll get a little heated under the collar with me, and I get a little heated under the collar, and we end friends. And I appreciate that. I value that in this town. But what has really struck me, and I've struggled whether I should say this or not, but I'm going to do it because this is who I am. The majority of the people who talk to me and call me, what he just expressed, and I will tell you, I've known this person now for 4 years, he never gets that. It's hurtful. And there are people who feel like they're not wanted in this town. And that's a hard thing for somebody to feel, that we're not valued. And that's, and I'm sure it was not intended by anyone here. But honestly, that's been the most heart-wrenching thing, is when people come in and say, well, it's great, we get another park, we don't have enough land trust, so I'm already paying for the land trust property that, I can maybe walk on. But, so I'm picking up that tab, I'm working hard, and then because they're like, that's where I'm gonna live. And it's very hard, and people take it very personally, and I think that's gotten lost in the mix someplace. So I just be very mindful of that, and I'm glad you said that, Daniel. I'm really happy you said that, because I think, especially in the beginning of these meetings and some of the VOA meetings, that really came out. And I will tell you, there is people in Waldeboro who take that very to heart.
Can I just say one other thing? So my wife and I, we moved here a year ago, and we picked Waldeboro because it's Waldeboro. We didn't want Camden. We didn't want down Muscata. We fit here. We opened a shop here because we feel like we belong here. I personally would feel a lot better if, and I know you can't do this, VOA's a monster, they're, you can't get guarantees from them, I guess, but I personally would feel great if we can get a guarantee that Waldeboro residents would live there. I'd feel great about that. But the fact that it's not necessarily for Waldeboro residents, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't consider people from out of town, but that's just personally my opinion. I just feel like I'd feel a lot better about this VOA project if I knew that current Waldeboro residents are benefiting from it. But I know we can't get that, I understand.
And that's because of the funding, right? It's federal funding, right? And so there can't be any favoritism, yeah.
And just to be transparent, we tried to find records, who's living in our existing, because there was some misinformation out there. It's, we're importing people from Portland into our homes already that are the existing housing that's here that's subsidized. And, these homes are not being occupied from people from other towns. These are our own people. This is third generation poverty. And I've said this, I said it from the beginning. I think it was probably after my first year here. We've got issues in Waldeboro, and we've got to deal with them, and we've got to deal with them head on. And, to be a prosperous community, we've got to have a serious discussion about poverty. That was the whole genesis of our community forums. This is a wonderful community. I mean, I am amazed on a consistent basis. Just this last year, believe me, I saw the best and worst of Waldeboro. I saw people I'm very unhappy about car registration, but at the same token, I saw those same people walk in with piles of food for the food pantry and donations to help our needy families. But I think, and Troy, you said it really well tonight. You really did. They're all good things.
I got lucky.
They're all good things, and I think having discussions, and maybe COVID with our masks on our face, we don't talk real well anymore. But I think debate is always good. It really is. It's a good thing. I liked what you said. They're all good things. But my point when I started, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, that's the perception, and that's a tough perception to get over when people feel marginalized. And like everybody, people have said to me, well, you can't really be against a park, but you also can't be against older people and senior living, and that's the biggest question I've got, is why can't they coexist? Maybe on a smaller scale than what the park committee would like, but I think that this is good, and hopefully we can move on from here.
This is Pike, I live here in Waldeboro. When did this park become public knowledge? I just found out about it.
I believe I came before the select board the first time on December 8th. So I guess it was shortly before that. It would, I think right after the November 3rd election that some people approached me in town and residents and said, knew my experience of having worked with the Bureau of Parks and Lands in Augusta for over 30 years. Why isn't this a park? And so I looked into it and I thought, well, you know, last August, Congress passed the Great Outdoor Act. There are funds there for just this kind of project. So it seemed to fit.
I have to say, along with some other people here, that I don't see them mutually exclusive. I would love to see both of them happen, and I know that you seem to not be in favor of that. I am not sure if we need 37. I thought you said 37.
32.
Units. Say again?
32 units, I believe.
32 units. I'm not sure that there's that need. I think years ago there was a committee in here, an AD grade committee, and I think it was in this room. Bob, I think you were here. We went around the room and wrote down on paper different ideas of what we would like to see. And I think one of the things that came out of that was a multi-use building. And I know that's not something BOA would be involved with, but that's a favorite of mine. I know that at one point I had heard the Friendship Street School was interested in some of that space because they had to move. I don't know if that's true anymore. Community Center was bantered around. So that's, you know, I'm just expressing my opinions on that. And but I do think you need to put something in, you know, to let more people know, because I had no idea until probably a few weeks ago that this was, well, you know.
Well, I know the newspapers have done a great job of reporting, I can say that. But
that's where I read it first, yeah. Actually, yes. So, but I really would love to see both of those ideas come to fruition.
Are we all set? Melvin, I see your hand up once, so you're the only one that hasn't spoken.
No such thing as federal money. There's no such thing as state money. It's all your money. That's where government gets their money from us. And that's why we have these projects we'd like to see, you know, it's a balancing act.
Yep.
If I don't get the money from the federal government
somebody else
is gonna.
Yep. Yep.
So I don't blame anybody from taking. But it's all your money. It come right out of your pocket. When you went to work, it come out of your pocket.
Yep. Yep. Katie, you still all set?
I am.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll move along. Thank you for the presentation. Get some adjustments to the agenda.
Yes, I move that we put under old business as 11.3 what we currently have under 10.1. That's the solar farm update and resident participation. And that we have as a new item 13, an executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A to discuss a personnel matter.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Here are none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. All right. We'll move along. Citizens' comments. We've had plenty of them, so shall we continue? Go ahead, Melvin.
Yeah. When it comes to all this solar energy, probably the greatest stuff there is. But we have no infrastructure to get rid of it. We have no infrastructure. Central Maine Power, been bought out by a foreign entity. They don't care if you build a solar farm. It's 100 acres. They don't care. They're not gonna buy it. We got federal government, we got state government, wants to tell them, oh, you're gonna have to buy it. They don't have to buy it. You know, we're using their lines to move that solar project up and down here. And we're paying a big fee for it.
I don't know.
I don't get that.
Our electric costs have gone down.
Yeah, they're going down because but we're still paying.
We're still paying, but in
for
2
the
more
service.
years, we're not going to. And then in 2 years, we're not gonna be. And it'll be a good thing for the town.
And what are we gonna do with this solar when it's worn out?
Well, the voters have to decide in 2 years what we do with it, whether we
buy
still
it or
just buy it or we don't. There'll be a whole big thing on that. It's gonna be interesting, because by then, I'm sure we'll have a lot to do.
That don't
But while I have you captive, have you heard anything about your aid for the school yet? Is it staying
Aid for the school?
from the
Very,
state?
Very, very little.
Is that what you guys
That's
have
what
heard?
we've heard.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I just checking.
So you wanna expect a big tax increase because the budget committee meets on the 8th. That's when they're starting. And it's gonna be a sad situation for the residents of Sad Cove.
Okay, I just wanted to know if you had heard anything yet. I know they had a revenue sharing meeting, a public hearing on Friday. We hadn't heard anything from the municipalities. I just wanted to know if you'd heard anything from the schools. Okay. Thank you,
I thought they were
Melvin.
all set. I thought they were told that the state was gonna give them just as much.
Janet Mills has spent the money.
I don't know.
So, and her budget is way, underfunded.
Okay, yep, that's fine.
Who's gonna fund it?
Thank you for that.
Thanks,
Thank you for that, Melvin. Does anybody else get anything? Anything on the computer, Max? Anybody get any questions?
No.
Citizens' comments? No? Okay. I guess we'll move along. Select board comments, Bob?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good. Colonel? Jan?
Already talked.
No, I would just like to thank the park committee. I think they have come together and mobilized very quickly and have put together a project and gathered people and have done a very nice job. That I love parks. I worked on the River Park, which is in town, with the Land Trust a number of years ago when that was going on. So it's not, and I think Troy said, I think it's, they're all good things. So
Okay.
it's not, I love parks.
Okay. Katie, do you have anything?
I'm all set, thanks.
Okay.
Very quiet tonight.
Very quiet. All right, town manager's report.
What did I have? I have one thing that I was gonna be all excited about, now it escaped me. I'll reserve it for later, because I don't remember.
Okay. Consent calendar. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
You want to second it, Katie?
Yep.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Right?
Okay. All right, well, guess we'll go on to old business. Promoting Waldenberg discussion. I think Jan.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I won't put you on the hot
I looked at that and then I didn't read it as that. I don't know what was the matter with me. Yes, I just thought it would be good. I think I still have a paper here. Yes. But I think it would be good to promote Waldeboro. And the reasons, that it, maybe if we talked last time about branding somewhat, but it sounded to me like maybe we weren't ready for that. But that doesn't mean we can't choose some sort of a theme, like a yearly theme, like something for this year. And why? Well, to help put Waldeboro on the map in a positive way, something good, to encourage and promote ourselves, to bring some community pride. And I'm not sure, I didn't want to say what to do, but I was curious of what other people might like. And to do that, I think we would need to reach out to the businesses, to work on a common theme, to include the Waldeboro Business Association, our business folks.
Don't hate to just interrupt, but Bob, you're still part of the Waldenberg Business Association?
Yes.
Is there any way that the business association could do a commercial of the businesses or a promotion from the businesses in town?
Yeah.
We could potentially put that on the Waldenberg website?
Mhm.
Is that something that would
Yeah, well,
be something interesting.
that would be good. I was sort of, Vicky had something to say back there. I was thinking of a
You've
theme.
mentioned this at a few meetings, and then you've also mentioned the flower boxes.
Mhm.
And to be honest, those are very nice ideas, even though we've only been in town or in Waldenberg for a year. I think you have to start with little things like
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely.
But I think,
I feel like you haven't had a good feedback on that idea. I think it is a really good one, though.
I think with Bob, if you could, when you have your next, business association meeting, is to maybe bring that up, that we could do some commercials, or not even commercials, but advertisements, and have them all together for all the businesses in town that are part of that. And-
I know they have been talking to one of the regional newspapers about doing
But I
something
mean,
like
do
that.
it full
but I like-
Waldeboro,
I
not
like
regional,
your
full
idea.
Waldeboro.
Yeah, I like your idea.
And put it on the
Website.
Waldeboro website.
Yep.
For businesses in town to be advertised.
Well, I was gonna bring that up tonight. When I first got here, because every place I'd been before, we always had a link to businesses on our website. Like, to me, that's normal, so if somebody doesn't know where something is, they have to click on the link and there's all your businesses listed. When I got here, I was told that was decided not to be done. Now, bear in mind, I get told things that we were told this couldn't be done. Now, whether that was 10 or 50 years ago, I'm never sure, but it might be time, and I mean, we linked the WBA.
Yeah.
But even if it was as simple as we could just have, like a sign-up form, and one of the problems I was told was, well, if a business goes out of date, then we don't know it. So, maybe every 6 months, and maybe Vicky could give some thoughts on this, if every 6 months we could, re-up your membership to the website or something, but I'm sure you'd put your business on our website, like on a list.
Let us paint our building first.
But like,
no one's contacted us from any association or anything. We just kind of do Instagram and Facebook, and
right.
Jan's nice enough to, follow us and put likes on there, which always helps for local businesses. That's something simple that anyone could do, is just put a like on your local Waldeboro businesses, like Chili Flowers and stuff. But regarding your rebranding of Waldeboro, you said one town had like a school contest. Maybe as an ex-teacher, that's something that you could bring up, is maybe you have.
They came up with a slogan.
Together.
Yeah, they came up with that. Nobleboro came up with a slogan for the town. That's a possibility. I was thinking one year I thought something really simple, like we're in the pink, so all the businesses and people planted pink flowers in the spring. Something
I think
simple.
those are simple ideas, but they're very powerful.
Right.
And it does bring the town together. And I noticed 2 meetings ago you mentioned
Yep.
it, and I meant to email you and say I thought that was a good idea.
Oh, thank you.
Because it's little things that make the town a little nicer.
Something else we could do is Lincoln County TV. Remember I talked to you about going around with a video camera and doing here's my store, tell me about it. Why'd you start it? What's here? What can we do for you? It'd be about 10 minutes. Send it off to the TV station, they'll play it when they have time. We can do that for just about every business in town. Another thing is a town that I lived in they called themselves the Ambassadors. And whenever there was a new business that came to town, about 8 people showed up with matching blazers and stuff, you don't have to do that, with the first dollar of profit plaque. And they hung it on their wall and took pictures, and it was in the paper. And that way, you get in, you get to meet them, you get to see them, you make friends with them.
The welcome wagon.
Yeah,
Exactly, and it's so easy to do, and it doesn't cost hardly anything. And you cut a ribbon maybe if you want to, and just make it fun.
Max, are you taking notes so we can take this back to the EDC too?
I mean, we're recording, so hopefully.
I'm taking notes.
Did you have a question? Max?
Well, technically two things. One was just for Jan, with what you were talking about getting the school, and Vicky with talking about getting the schools involved. There was, in the files I keep rummaging through, there was this, I think it was a essay contest that the schools did. So it's something that the town's done before, and I don't know why it would have stopped. It might have just been a 1-year thing. And then, I mean, I don't know if you can see Ruben's comments from here. He's just been going off a few things.
Yeah.
Mostly just Google AdWords, Let's see, workshop, I think that's what the business association's about. Local tax write-off for businesses that do get involved in the ads. Like, he's just spitting off a few ideas on YouTube, which I'll leave off for the recording for people to see later.
Oh, okay.
Susan?
I just got a email from a realtor, and I can't remember which one it was, but they are putting together baskets for people when people purchase a home here in Waldenberg to give them with local gifts and so on from businesses. But I'm wondering if a brochure. I think the Waldenberg Business Association does have brochures.
They do, and so does the EDC.
Say it again?
So does the Economic Development Committee.
Okay, so I'm wondering if that brochure could also be included in these baskets, and I will let Jan or you know what that realtor was and the company. So maybe that at some point, if you want to pursue that, we could do that.
You got anything, Katie?
Just reiterate what I said before about taking that brochure to other towns, to the Chamber of Commerce's, and putting those brochures in those buildings where people stop by and see what's out there for information.
Okay. Anything else, Jan?
No, I was really hoping you guys would come give me some ideas on themes.
Well, I think we did.
I mean, just themes. No, these are all great ideas. No, but I mean, to use a theme to go along with that.
I don't even know where to start.
How about resilience?
It's hard to build something that's, I mean, I thought even like 1 year, well, I know, that's a good one.
I mean, it's just, we're coming off of COVID, resilience, rebirth, renew.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But 1 year, someone had a bunch of clam hogs made for people to decorate, or just to use them as flower pots or something in front of all the
Okay, so
businesses.
something more like that.
Just something simple, and then they're not mutually exclusive. Something that would work together, just something that.
Is that a Max project?
No.
No, I don't. I think maybe
You don't want my fashion sense.
No, I don't know. I
maybe
like
we
the
should ask
pink
Steve
on
Warren.
Yeah, that's I
Because
talked
I
to
mean,
him once.
I would talk to Steve Warren because I mean he does all our flower pots, and it might get more people involved.
Yeah. Is he the chair of the garden club?
He is. These are well, no, I think Katie's the chair.
Katie is.
Hey, Katie.
What?
Can you come up with something cool for the garden pots and all the like the pots out front here, and maybe we could combine with the WBA and see what.
Or even like our school colors. I just came home from Rangeley, and all over town. It's a tiny little town, and it has all these signs about promoting their school. Their split. They had all different sports people, and then they had other. It was nice. It had a good feeling about this is a community that supports its school.
We could do blue and yellow.
That's what I was to say. Can we do blue and yellow flowers, Katie? You're the flower connoisseur.
You can do whatever you want.
In the flower pots this year.
I mean, it's endless what you can do with flowers.
Yep.
I mean, there's all colors and there's all types, and you can put them all together and make whatever you want.
And then we could use, put these pots in front of a business and get pictures and interview the business people. I'll talk to Neil Lash about that too. See if
because he's going to be growing stuff.
Could order,
right?
Yeah. Give some ideas and help.
You mentioned the schools getting involved, also the art departments at the school, maybe they could come up with a logo, a design or something, go with anything written.
Okay. Yep. All right.
Did you have any thoughts? Did you have any thoughts on?
Well, we're just trying to see how we can get it, help out and get it going. Oh, it did?
Or were you just, you're from New York, you talk with your hands, I get you.
You're from Jersey.
I get you.
All right, so I guess we're all set with that?
Yep.
Move along?
Yep.
Update about the lead bands gifts
gifting of Sylvania said.
So we sent off our suggested changes. As you know, and thank you girls, ladies, for covering this so well.
Did a great job.
We sent off at the last meeting, the select board approved me signing the gifting agreement, but there had to be 2 changes. They sent those changes to us last week, and Bob made some comments on them. I have them. I have sent our comments back to them, so hopefully I'm expecting something in the next day or so. So I think we should be well on our way.
What are those 2 changes?
The 2 changes originally were to change paragraph 5, which dealt with the consent agreement, and a typo in section 11. Correct, Bob?
Yeah. And that they did make an addition to section 5 to mention that we're not to become party to that consent order, but I don't know, they screwed up the sentence. It just wasn't.
It wasn't flowing well.
It lacked a subject.
Yeah, I think there was a,
Yeah,
I want to say a dangling participle, but it wasn't.
it was a nit. It wasn't a material thing.
Right.
Well, cool. Anything else? Yes, we'll move along to items for the next agenda meeting.
Nope, you forgot
No.
Max.
11th
Oh,
Street.
sorry.
Solar farm.
Max, I'm sorry. I did that to myself.
Huh?
I did that to myself.
Yes, you did.
Up the agenda.
Yes, sorry.
I didn't
You're
even
up
expect,
front center, Max.
didn't expect to be up here this fast. So, hello everyone. Recently at the January 20th Planning Board meeting, the Planning Board approved a 4.95 megawatt solar farm to be developed up at Controversy Lane, just for those who are out of loop on that one. I was contacted by the marketing group for Sincarfa. They're the solar developers for that farm. I was contacted by Relay Power LLC. They're the ones who are marketing the solar farm. What they have done in the past is work with towns to promote the solar farm, to get some local residents in this area to be part of that, to buy into the solar farm at no cost to them. Just for a distinguishing thing, when the Sunray Solar Farm, that's probably the one people are most familiar with. That's the one that's on Travis Reed's property right now. When that one was being built, they initially were marketing towards commercial, institutional, and industrial people. They had about 3 megawatts they were trying to distribute, and they were mostly focusing on commercial. Now, the one on Controversy Lane, they are exclusively going to be looking for residential people. So as long as you're a CMP customer, you are able to sign on to that solar farm that's going to be built up there.
Now, I guess a question for that. Does a resident can buy into that? Is that what you're saying? They can buy a piece of that solar farm? Is that what you're saying?
They provide their most recent electric bill to see if they qualify, and then Relay, if they qualify, they would be part of the. I don't know what the state has it like. It's like 200 is a limit.
They would receive electricity from the project as a customer.
Right.
At a discounted price. But they wouldn't be an owner.
But they would be a subscriber to
They'd be a subscriber to their supply.
And they give an estimate of about 15% as a discount for people who are subscribing onto that network.
Just to sign up for it?
Just to sign, yep, if you sign up, they tell you that you're on that system, then you get 15% off. You don't pay anything, you just sign on to it. Yes.
So tell me again the name of what is that solar farm called, or?
So the solar farm being built up at Controversy Lane,
Yeah.
it falls under an LLC, technically it falls under an LLC name, but I always referred to it as the developer, Sincarfa.
Sincarfa.
Yes.
But it's Relay Power.
Well, Relay Power is who they hired for the marketing to reach out to people to
But it's
sign on.
actually,
Right. Sincarfa is who I call the
but
the
Relay
overall
Power is who you're signing the agreement with.
Right, and Relay
They're
Power.
from Massachusetts,
Yes.
and you can
And
Google
that's who
them.
has to be contacted?
Yes.
Or Sincarfa?
Well, they would be contacted. Relay Power would.
Relay Power.
Do they have information in the town? They should have information here so residents can sign up for it in the office.
Well, that's
If
what.
we want to do that.
Well, that's what I'm here tonight about. What they want to do is as an early campaign, is to see if the town is interested in working with them on trying to get people in this immediate area to sign up for it. So
For a 50%
Really?
reduction.
the example they gave me was of Northbridge, Massachusetts, I believe, was where they did it. And unfortunately, I couldn't get a hold of the town manager to help me out on what they did exactly there.
I tried too.
Yeah. Wait, what?
I did, I called too.
Oh, well.
Great minds think alike there, Max.
What I was told by Relay Power was that what they did was they put a little flyer in their tax bill, in the people's tax bills when it was mailed out, and it was pretty obvious what would happen from there. And what happened was the town had an agreement beforehand, so for every resident in that town that signed up, $100 went to an organization or service that's offered in this town. So that's why I was trying to get Northbridge. I was trying to understand what they did. But we could do it for, we could give it to the food pantry, we could have it go to the Philbrook Fund or heating assistance. You could give it to the Max Johnstone Hawaii Vacation Fund. There's a few options you could do it. And so that's why I wanted to talk. It's very early on, and that's why it's probably a good time to start talking about it and working it out. I think you all got the copy of the Memorandum of Understanding, and I made a few edits to it, but what do people think?
Is that what I read it and didn't really understand it, but now I do.
Pretty much we would just say, are you interested in solar? Well, you don't have to install your own panels. You can just sign up over a controversy lane, which, yeah.
If we just do this memorandum of understanding with them, I mean, it doesn't obligate anybody as a resident to sign up for it, correct?
It does not, right. I don't want anybody to think we're switching their power companies.
No.
I looked for complaints and went through, there's no complaints at the Better Business Bureau. I mean,
I think it should be, one thing I would want to make clear is that I'm happy with both solar farms that are in this town. I love the fact Sunrays chose us. I love the fact Sincarfa chose us. I think they're great people. They've been very cooperative throughout the entire planning process. And I think they both have great, admirable goals. And
But only one's offering this.
One's offering residential, correct.
Is the other one's offering commercial?
Sunrays has already accumulated their entire 3 megawatts.
They've already sold all their
Yeah, I think.
power. Wow.
I think you wrote an article about, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't-
85% of it went to 2 major customers, and then the rest of it was local businesses. But yeah, they've booked up.
That's quick.
Wow.
Yeah.
but I mean, if they only have 200 slots, it would be nice if they were our people here.
All Waldenberg.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
So,
I think we can get that.
go ahead, Bob.
I just had a couple of questions. Can they put in the word non-exclusive somewhere so that this is a non-exclusive agreement and we can go to some other purveyor of solar power if we determine that there might be a better competitor out there? Because this is gonna take some time. They gotta build it, and then they gotta connect it to CMP, and I understand that CMP is now analyzing every single community solar farm that comes down the pike to make sure of compatibility.
Right.
Right,
As they
and that
should,
can
but-
handle,
But I think they've already gotten their approvals.
Right,
not to hook up to CMP, I don't think they have.
right, that is like the final
Yeah.
bit right there.
Yeah.
But
So I would just like to see the word non-exclusive in there if they're amenable.
So my question is, I'm sorry, do you want to go through all the questions first, or should you?
Yeah, just a couple.
Yeah, go ahead.
A couple more. They talk about qualified sign-up. On the very last line under paragraph 5, it's the second to the last word on that page.
What was the word?
$100 for every qualified
Sign up, yes.
sign-up. They don't define that word. What makes you qualified?
Yeah, what's
Do you have to consume a certain amount of electricity to be qualified? Are they looking for big residential customers, or are they just looking for anybody who's a residential customer who does whatever?
Right.
And then they do say they will make a $100 contribution for every sign-up.
Mhm.
And I guess we decide how to distribute that money.
Right.
And if you get 100 sign-ups, that's $10,000.
And that's their goal.
That's good money.
Karen Ann put in her request to the Community Navigator Fund.
Fair enough. But they talk about giving us that money, let me quote, to partners by the end of the following month.
Right.
Do you know what that means?
Of course I do, but I feel people in the audience would benefit if you said it.
Okay, well, I would be more exact in my wording of that, and I would just say that it's the last business day of the month succeeding the month during which they sign up. So that we know we get our money within at least 60 days. If they sign up on the first day of a given month, they have to pay us on the last day of the last business day of the following month. That's all.
Okay.
So you want to table this for the next meeting? Is that?
Yeah, that's fine. I told
with these changes to go back to them.
Well, I'm curious what the non-exclusive item is supposed to be, because we're just saying that we'll put out like a social media post, or we'll put something in the tax
What
bills.
if someone else comes down the pipe from Pittsfield and says, we got a solar farm here, we want you to market our solar energy to your residents, which they could do, and it would be nice to know we're not stepping on toes if we do that.
Okay, so I misinterpreted that. I thought you were saying like if another solar farm moves to Waldenberg. Like,
No,
I thought you were talking about like community solar farm, like what we have at the transfer station.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what I thought you were
it
talking
wouldn't
about.
have to be a community, it wouldn't have to be in Waldeboro. I mean, these solar farms are being built everywhere, and they're casting them up customers all over the state and outside the state. And it would be nice to mention the 15% in there somewhere. I mean, I talked to this girl, they're working on commission, which is fine. I mean, they've got an incentive to get customers. But I said, where's the 15%? Can you verify that it's 15%? And she hesitated for a bit, and then she went and talked to somebody, came back and said, yeah, it's really 15%. But why can't they put that in the memorandum of understanding so we're all on the same page on this?
Because I think because I thought the MOU was supposed to primarily be about just more laying out the position of like what the town would do and what Relay Power would do. The 15%, I understand getting that in there, but that's the contract they're putting with the residents. At least, I don't know, maybe I misunderstood the whole thing.
Okay.
But I can talk with them to see if that's something we can have in writing.
I mean, they did say they'd give us a copy of the contract that the resident would have with Sincarfa or whoever it is that owns that thing. They confirmed that. And they said the contract would say 15%, but it would be nice that we're signing people up and not being fully informed of 15%.
Okay. So.
I mean, that's what got us all excited.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 15%.
People riot outside my office if it's 14%.
You never know, Max.
Good possibility.
So I'm just going back to them and I'm making sure of the 4 items. 1, the non-exclusive.
Find out what qualified is.
Right. Find out what qualify is. I think that I mentioned that a bit earlier. We'd give them the electric bill and they just want to make sure it's a high enough item, but I do understand your point. 3, more exact wording for end of month, and then somewhere in the MOU about 15% for customers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. If the town's gonna sign up to this, I think there should be some sort of understanding of what the residents are gonna get.
Right. And I think just during that time, the homework I have for you guys is think of the organization or service in town that you might want to consider for this, because it's probably going to be a one-time.
I think the
amount.
community navigator.
Community navigator.
Because that's something they say would probably be a nice thing to just include in the ad. Your money goes towards this.
Helping people in town.
Yep.
Karen put in her.
Yeah, and that way it stays with the town. You don't having outside groups competing for it, which can be unfair.
And it's she's
So worthy.
She's
Worthy?
been doing amazing
Yes.
work
Yes.
lately. Well, ever since she got here, but
Yeah.
the last week she did a lot of good work.
As I say, you now have 2 weeks to think about it.
You got any questions, Katie?
No, I'm all set, thanks.
Okay.
Any questions in the audience? I'm surprised Ruben didn't say anything.
Probably did a good job. He isn't blowing up.
All right.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll move along to the items for the agenda for the next meeting. Shall this be on there? Do you think you'll have it ready in 2 weeks?
Oh, yeah, easy.
Okay.
We
So
have
put that under old business.
the public hearing for the change to the shellfish harvesting licenses. And we also have the public hearing for, we had scheduled in Tanya, forgot to put it on the agenda, for the change in the fire ordinance, Bob.
Ah, right, yeah.
And maybe next time, I'd like to go over the smoking ordinance with you guys. I know I sent it to you. We had a public complaint about smoking, and I looked it up, and then we saw there was some, it hasn't been revised in a very long time, so.
96 or something like
Yeah,
that.
and we are not compliant with what we're doing, so we need to update that. It's one of those things that just you don't think of, you know, the rules have changed so much. I mean, think about that, 1996.
Cool. I guess that's it. Paul, would you like to go make a motion to go into executive session?
Sure, I move we go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A
Is there a second?
That's for personnel.
to discuss a personnel matter.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor? Okay.
Aye.
Okay.
I can call you in the morning.
Okay. I have a 10:30 meeting, so hopefully before 10:30.
I have a 9 o'clock